Jerome Powell raised interest rates, blah, blah, blah. That's not important. I think a lot of you guys already know that news by now. And I did attempt to make a video, but I hit the brakes on a video to go over my Bitcoin chart that you guys see right here. Juiced it up on steroids since the last time you guys saw it. And right away, I don't know exactly what is going on. That's why I've just been looking at this chart for the past 2 days now, like trying to figure it out, but it's crazy. Okay, so FOMC, Jerome Powell raises interest rates by 0.25 basis points. That's nothing special. Nothing new, nothing surprising. It's looking like they may raise rates again by 0.25 basis points. There's no pivot coming anytime soon. What Jerome Powell says, the market thinks that the Fed may pivot sometime in July. All right, so that's what the market thinks, but Jerome says don't expect any in all of 2023. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at what Bitcoin is doing. So right now we're hovering at around 27,700-ish. So I have a couple different lines. Let me break that down real quick for you. And the blue line is short term when Bitcoin is headed down, and the yellow line is when Bitcoin is in the short term headed up. Okay, so yellow line, I made them very faint because there's just so many of them, but it literally gridded the whole thing. If I show you a darker one, here's a darker one. Some of the ones that I've darkened are the ones that I found to be more significant. And then all the lighter ones is more of just a grid. But if you just pause the video and just take a look at how well Bitcoin has stuck to this grid, it's kind of crazy. That's why I haven't made a video the past couple days, is because I've literally just been gridding this out. All of this is manual. Okay, blue line is when Bitcoin is going down in the short term. Right here, we can see that Bitcoin has been following these two yellow lines here inside of that channel, right? It went sideways, pumped all the way up to the top of the channel, went sideways again, and then pumped all the way up to the top of the channel. Okay, and then we have the blue line, darker, thicker blue line right here where Bitcoin went to its all-time highs, fell down, bounced, tested it, fell down, and then we went above it, and then we tested it again one more time here. And so that's definitely a significant one, but as you can see, Bitcoin was headed down following that blue line. Then I have longer trend lines. Okay, the longer trend lines are this orange line and this green line. So this is where Bitcoin is at now. We literally just jumped above that orange line. If I go ahead and pull it back, I mean, obviously you can see that how much Bitcoin has been magnetized to this line right here when we fell from 69,000 and we kind of just stuck around here, bounced up, went under it, tested it, and then went down. Let's pull it back again. We can see here, this is when Bitcoin kind of went sideways, this whole sideways action ever since the fall of 2017 all-time high. We fell. Once we broke it here, look at that. This wick literally almost touches it. Once we broke down, we went under it, broke up, went above it. Then we kind of coiled up here right at this orange line. You see how it just coiled up nice before we actually hit the precipice and shot up. Bitcoin, when it was shooting up during the 2017 all-time highs, it literally stopped right at that orange line. This is the all-time high of 2013, all the way back in the day. Look at that. Bitcoin broke above it, tested it, hovered around, coiled up, only to fall back down. So all of these lines are perfectly parallel to each other. Okay, so all the blue lines are parallel to each other. All the yellow lines are parallel to each other, all the orange lines and all the green lines. Okay, so they're all at the exact same angle to the according color. Two of the main points of information is how do we figure out where things bottom and how do we figure out when Bitcoin will eventually start to crest and make its all-time highs, right? So that's what I was really trying to figure out here. So this orange line was an indicator right here where Bitcoin again just followed it so well. Green line here showed itself quite well when it shot through the first all-time high in 2021 at 64,000-ish. So it shot through that and then we dropped below it. And then we tested it, fell below it again, went above it, tested it, dropped below it, tested it again. You see how well Bitcoin stuck to this green line? That's how I found that green line. It was just it seemed so significant. I moved that green line to here and we could just see that this was at the all-time high in 2018. If you continue on, Bitcoin almost hit that green line right here in 2019 when it pumped back all the way up to about $14,000. And then we could see right here is when Bitcoin started to coil up to the very end before shooting off to 64,000 bucks. We can see that this green line started to wedge up with this orange line that I talked about earlier. This kind of told me that this is probably maybe an indicator. Maybe I haven't verified it yet, but this is an indicator here that shows when possibly could Bitcoin start coiling up and shooting up. And so I started doing that with where we're at currently. So I'm going to share with you that later in the video. So definitely stick around. I try to do it with this one. This one isn't quite as clean, but literally I drew the green line once again right here. right at the very top of the peak, just like what 2017 did. And then also this orange line right here. If this is the wedge, this green line right here and this orange line right here, when Bitcoin dropped below it, it tested it a couple times, went above it, tested it as support a couple times. We went a little bit above that green line, and we didn't make it all the way to the end of the wedge. We just kind of like went down and went up, and then we were off to the races. So it could be this orange line. Maybe it could be this lighter orange line up here, which shows a little bit better of a wedge here. Bitcoin actually dropped below it, faking people out. I think maybe having people think that Bitcoin could fall, only for it to shoot up and makes its next all-time highs here in 2017. So let's go ahead and take a look at where I think Bitcoin is headed now. I'm still trying to dissect this chart, and I'm still trying to figure all of this out and try to find these patterns to where I can help predict where could be the possible bottom is and where could be the possible time where we actually start coiling up and shooting off to the races for the next all-time highs. These are kind of the points where I predict where potentially Bitcoin could shoot off next. That's the winky phases, and then the O phases are potentially where Bitcoin could possibly bottom out. So this green line is from the all-time highs here, and I drew a couple of them because I don't really know which one it could be. It could be this very top green line right here, but I made it lighter because I kind of don't think it's going to be that one. I drew this one right here, could be that one too, which is why I put the winky face right there. And then I thickened this one because I kind of really think that it could be this one. So this one here is October 2024, and this one here is November 2024. Depending on which green line it is, it could be further out before we actually shoot up and break out, assuming I'm right. Okay, I still don't know if I'm right or if I'm wrong. And then so I'm trying to also figure out which orange line would it be. It could be this one right here, which then that means that we would be here in end of November 2023. I don't know if I believe that quite yet, just because shooting off to all-time highs at an end of 2023 just seems a bit too early for me. I can imagine us visiting this green line sometime. We could coil up here and then crash back down to its lows. So where do I think the lows are? I think that the lows could be this one or this one, the orange line. Okay, if we pull back the top orange line, we can see that this is where Bitcoin kind of bottomed out here during the pandemic low. The one below it is actually the bottom of the wick. Okay, so it could be either one of those. This one here though, the top one, going back to the top one after 2017 all-time highs when it bottomed out there, when Bitcoin was shooting up to the all-time highs in 2017, it tested this line again. Okay, so it's interesting how we almost kind of visited here. I imagine that we could hold it as support if we were to fall back down, but I imagine that the actual low lows could be down here. And if I could just keep pulling this back out, I mean, you guys can see there's just so much history here. You could just see how Bitcoin actually magnetizes itself to these lines. It almost seems like it should be more random than it actually is. So just to give you guys some time frames real quick, maybe we could potentially, if I'm right, if what I'm seeing is right, and I'll continue to keep updating you guys, so definitely hit that subscribe button. Could be end of 2024, which we end up coiling up and then blasting off, and this price point here is around 30K. 30K almost seems like the 10K back here, around 10K is when Bitcoin really started coiling up and blasting off. I think 30K seems like the number for this cycle. There are some people that say that the bottom of Bitcoin could be potentially somewhere around $6,500, which kind of is a bit crazy. I'm not quite sure if Bitcoin would actually get that low. Here seems to be more likely. Why? It's because if we go ahead and take a look and measure out how much Bitcoin tends to fall, it usually falls at around 80%. And every single cycle, Bitcoin tends to fall less and less. Okay, so I think the last one was 83%. Maybe this time around, Bitcoin could fall around 80%, maybe 79-ish. So if I were to measure out where my first O phase here is, it's actually at 80%, just under 80%, 79%. That seems like it makes a lot of sense that it could fall down to about $13,500, $700. This is probably the line because it just makes the most sense of how much Bitcoin will fall from its all-time highs. Now, when that will happen, I'm not quite sure. I just drew the O face right here mainly because blue line is coming down and it seems to be a very important line. Bitcoin tested it from its all-time highs all the way down. And so what I'm thinking is that we may actually bottom somewhere on this orange line right here, which hovers at around, that 15,000, 16,000, depending on when we finally actually hit it. I can see that Bitcoin follows all of this grid, right? And all of these lines, but still don't know exactly where Bitcoin's going to head next. But I'm going to continue to keep dissecting this chart here and figuring out, and I'll share it with you guys, whatever I end up figuring out. Definitely hit that thumbs up button. It really helps out the channel. I'm trying really hard to get this channel to be monetized. So I need 1,000 subscribers. Please help me out by hitting that subscribe button to get me to 1,000 subscribers so I can finally monetize this channel. All right, guys, that's about it. I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.